And the SABC has labelled as factually incorrect and misleading claims by Union Federation Cosatu that the public broadcaster has applied for another bailout. Earlier, Cosatu and its affiliate, the Communication Workers Union, CWU, said the corporation's board must be dissolved. This after the public broadcaster submitted a 1.5 billion rand projected revenue shortfall to National Treasury following the impact of COVID-19 on its finances. For reaction on this, we're joined by the chairperson of the SABC board, Musa Makatini. Joining me via Skype. A very good evening to you, Mr. Makatini. Thanks indeed for your time. Let me get your reaction, first of all, to Cosatu's call for your entire board to be fired.
Good evening to your listeners and viewers at home. Thank you for the opportunity that you're giving us. It is important for us as the board to set the record straight. Around the issue of the dissolution of the board, there is a very well-defined process that needs to be followed when that has to be done. The National Assembly first must adopt a resolution after proper inquiry has been conducted to prove that the board has failed to deliver on its fiduciary duty and to do what is expected of them. Without that, whatever they're saying for me is not based in any law or on a rationale.
Mr. Makatini, in a statement that the SABC released about an hour ago, you say it is wrong for Cosatu to say that the SABC, I quote, has applied for another bailout. If it is not a bailout, then what is it? Can we get some clarity on what you say is factually incorrect?
Basically, what the assertion by Cosatu is not only factually inaccurate, but it is also misleading. SABC was requested by the Department of Communication and Digital Technologies, like any other department or entities that are faced with the challenges of the lockdown and COVID-19, to put an application for additional funding as a result of the unforeseen and unavoidable expenditure, which in this case is COVID-19, which we all know was something that we couldn't have anticipated as the SABC. It is not the additional or requesting for additional bailout, but it is done as part of the budget adjustment that is done and led by the National Treasury.
I'll come to other issues very shortly, but I'd just like you to confirm that you've asked for what you've said in that statement was additional funding to the tune of 1.5 billion rand. Is that correct?
Basically, we were requested by the Department of Communication and Digital Technologies to put an application for additional funding to assist with the unforeseen, unavoidable expenditure as it was emanating from COVID-19, which affected a number of entities, a number of departments, and we did that. And just to make it clear, we've not received a cent of that 1.5 billion, which is going to be a revenue gap as a result of the COVID-19 challenges.
Mr. Makatini, I want to come to another issue about retrenchments. You know, Parliament's Portfolio Committee was quite clear that in terms of the briefings it had received from unions and staff, that management had issued notices of retrenchment before conducting an open and transparent skills audit or consulting with relevant stakeholders. Mr. Makatini, you as the SABC say that a skills audit was done. I want to ask you about the credibility of that process. Are you open to accepting that the skills audit itself was flawed? I'll give one example. In a recorded conversation between a staff member and the company, a consultant had basically conceded that there was no way that what looks like to be in that questionnaire could determine the skills base of employees. Would you concede that as the SABC, given that recording?
No, I wouldn't concede to that because that fallacy is not true. It's not factual. We've done the skills audit and we've submitted a detailed report of that skills audit to Parliament, and CW has a copy of that skills audit. And like we've always said, that skills audit is not part of the decision or a prerequisite for you to do Section 189. And this thing about consulting, Section 189, when you read the Labour Relations Act, it states very clear that at the point where you contemplate retrenchment, you have to consult. So the process we are embarking on now, which is Section 189, is the process of consultation, which is legal and which is procedural and aligned with the Labour Relations Act.
You're again on record just a few seconds ago, Mr. Makatini. You've been on record previously also claiming that the skills audit is not a prerequisite for retrenchments. So then why did the SABC rush the skills audit process if it was not for the purpose of retrenchment? You told Parliament that the process is completed.
I don't agree that it was rushed unless you can show me the project plan that you had that will show that it was rushed. This was done by expert.
Mr. Makhathini, you have it on record as the board, together with other members of management here at the SABC. If it was not a prerequisite, then why was the skills audit itself rushed through? That skills audit had been sent to employees here at the SABC in the run-up to the SABC's planned announcement about the move that it plans to make. And there have been a number of questions that have been raised about it. Its credibility. I spoke about the video or the recording. You don't want to comment on that. How do you then say that if it was not there for the intended purpose, how then can you simply tell Parliament that it's been completed? If it wasn't a prerequisite in the beginning, and also it is a process that seemed to have been rushed through?
When it comes to retrenchments and the decisions around the criteria, that get decided by the employer in consultation with the other stakeholders like like unions. So the process we're embarking on now will then assist in terms of what criteria we're going to be using and what other mitigation steps we can take to reduce maybe the numbers to somehow extend or push the date of retrenchment and so forth. So the process we are embarking on now is going to come up with a number of criteria and a number of things that are necessary for us to working with the unions to agree on how best to progress with it. We've said the skills audit is important in us understanding the skill set of our employees, but it is not a prerequisite. We're doing this process following the Labour Relations Act. In the Labour Relations Act, there is no mention of a skills audit as a prerequisite.
So what
and this
criteria?
process is being guided and facilitated by CCMA, and certainly CCMA is well versed with how best to do these kind of processes.
So, Mr. Makhathini, then what criteria are you using then to retrench employees? Because that skills audit would have certainly given you an idea of exactly what your skills base looks like. And from what we also have on record, you have the company itself, a consultant at the company itself saying there's no way that skills audit can identify any of the skills of your employees here at the SABC. What criteria are you using?
Like I've said, Griselda, that the criteria will be agreed as part of the consultation process. You don't embark in this process with preconceived ideas. You go into an honest and transparent consultation with other key stakeholders, and working together, then you craft and agree on the criteria. So that has not been decided because we're still busy with consultation. You talk about the credibility of the skills audit. Based on what we've submitted and what has been shared with CW and Parliament, skills audit report has been submitted and it was thoroughly done.
Mr. Makhathini, I have another question for you. I mean, have you supported as a board an enlisted public relations agency to assist executives on the board around the issues of the Section 189 and the skills audit?
I'm not clear of the question, but in terms of the operational decision, what we've done as a board, we've taken a resolution that empowers the executive team to embark on the process that they've embarked on, and that resolution was taken by the full board, and that's what we stand by, and that's what is giving the mandate to the executive.
Have you hired a PR agency, Mr. Makhathini? Have you hired a PR agency? That's the question.
In terms of the appointment of agencies and suppliers, that's a decision of the executive. As a board, we don't get involved in the appointment of suppliers or service providers.
But is there one, then, Mr. Makhathini, that you are aware of, a PR agency that has been hired to assist with the Section 189 and the skills audit? Are you aware of a PR agency?
What I'm aware of, Griselda, is that we've taken a resolution at the board to allow the executive to embark on the process. As to which service provider they use, that's an operational decision. As a board, we should not get involved in operational issues.
Okay. Mr. Makhathini, Parliament has also asked you to put the process itself on ice. Why are you as the board reluctant to heed Parliament as an oversight committee?
You've put it correctly, as Griselda, that the Parliament plays an oversight role, which we welcome. And as the SABC board, we want the Parliament to play their part. But the day-to-day, the affairs of the SABC, as stipulated in the Broadcasting Act, as by the Matuljana judgment, the board is in charge of the affairs of the SABC. From a fiduciary duty, we are expected to lead what happens at the SABC, working with the executive. Parliament has to oversee the work that we are doing, which is a role that we welcome and we appreciate.
Mr. Makatini, we're fast running out of time, but I have to ask, are executives also going to be retrenched in this process?
When we talk about retrenchments, the reason why we're embarking on Section 189 consultation is for exactly that reason, so that we can then agree on who will be affected, based on what criteria. That will be the outcome of the decision. But I can assure you that this process is not only targeting certain levels and excluding others. We'll do what is right to make sure that SABC is fit for purpose and is properly structured.
Mr. Bangumbusa Makatini, the chairperson of the SABC board, responding to Cosatu's call for his entire board to go, and also chatting to us a bit about the impending retrenchments here at the SABC and the process that is being followed. Thanks indeed for your time. The chairperson of the SABC board, Bangumbusa Makatini.